All right, let's dive into the study and research skills.
Yeah.
You're here to improve, and this source, it really does have a lot of information.
It's interesting how this source,
It's overwhelming.
it goes deep
Yeah,
from just basic study habits all the way to dissertations.
exact.
So no matter where you are in your learning,
There's something here for you.
you can use this.
Yeah, think of this as your cheat sheet for like how to be a better learner. So
Well-
let's start with like study strategies, laying the foundation.
Okay.
I think we've all been there. Procrastination, lack of focus.
Yeah.
Those are big problems. And
It's so common.
yeah.
But this source, it actually gives you some tools.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't just say,
Like it doesn't just say don't procrastinate.
Right,
It's
right.
like, well, how do you do that?
One of the things that I thought was really interesting
Yeah.
was rewarding yourself for even small wins.
Yes, that's so key.
It sounds simple, but it works.
It does. It's like you're training yourself to
Yeah, your brain loves that.
want to study more.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking like, ugh, I've got 5 hours of studying. It's
Right.
like, okay, if I do 1 hour, then I get this treat.
Exactly.
And I think that ties into the other thing that the source talks about, which is environment.
Yeah, environment matters.
It does.
If you're in a place where you also watch TV and you're on social media,
Yeah. And eat and sleep.
how are you supposed to focus?
No wonder you can't focus. A designated study zone.
Yes.
Like, check that off the list.
have a spot that is just for studying.
But here's where things get really interesting. This source talks about learning styles.
Yeah.
Auditory, visual, kinesthetic.
Not everyone learns the same way.
You can't just have a one-size-fits-all.
A lot of people try to study in a way that doesn't actually work for them, and they don't realize
I
it.
don't realize it.
And so this source encourages you to think about,
Yeah. Play to your strengths.
yes, what are you good at?
So if I'm a visual learner, I should be using diagrams or color coding.
Right, or flashcards.
Or cards.
Yeah. You know, some people are auditory learners,
Yes.
so they might want to record lectures and listen back to them.
Right, or even discuss it
Yes, talking about it,
out loud.
even if you're just talking to yourself.
Talk to yourself.
Yeah, it helps solidify it.
Kinesthetic learners got to get up and move.
Yes.
Like, build a model.
Build a model, act it out,
Yeah.
use your whole body.
Engage all your senses.
Yes.
Speaking of engaging all your senses, the source had this tip about using taste and smell to boost memory.
Oh, interesting.
I was like, what? At first, but then I remembered, back in college, I used to chew this specific flavor of gum
okay.
when I was studying. And then during the exam,
Yeah,
I could practically taste the information coming back.
that's it. That's the multisensory learning.
It really does work.
Our brains make so many connections when we involve more senses.
Yeah.
The source suggests even having different scents or tastes for different subjects.
Not like your own little sensory memory palace.
That's it.
Okay, so we got our environment, we're playing to our learning style, we're engaging our senses.
Okay.
What else can we do?
Well, let's talk about effective reading.
Okay,
Because I think a lot of us, we just kind of skim
I know I do.
and hope for the best.
Yeah.
But there are these techniques called SQ4R and PQ4R.
Okay.
Have you heard of these?
Vaguely.
Okay.
But I'm definitely not using them intentionally.
Okay. Well, these are ways to make you an active reader.
Okay.
So instead of just kind of absorbing the information,
Yeah.
you are interacting with it on different levels.
So surveying, questioning, reading, reciting, all that stuff.
Exactly.
Instead of just zoning out while I'm going through a chapter and reviewing, that's key too.
Yes. The review is crucial.
Instead of just cramming it all in at the end, space it out. It's better for memory.
Much better.
Okay, so what about note-taking?
Yes. Any tips on how to make notes that help us learn?
Find what works for you.
Okay.
Some people like linear notes. Some people are all about mind maps.
Yeah, those are fun.
Key is organization.
Okay.
Make sure they're clear.
Right.
Think of it as a conversation with the material.
Okay.
You want to be able to easily see what you were thinking and understanding at that moment.
Yeah.
You come back to it.
You know, I've been experimenting with digital note-taking lately.
Oh, cool.
It's been a game changer for me.
I can imagine. Yeah.
I love that I can search through my notes instantly.
Yeah, so much easier.
I can link out to different resources.
Right.
I can record audio.
Oh, wow.
It's like a super-powered notebook.
That's great.
And I think that's what this source is encouraging you to do, to think outside the box.
Right.
Like, maybe you need color coding.
Maybe it's flashcards.
Flashcards or voice memos.
Whatever works.
It's just a tool to help you understand,
Yeah.
not just a mindless transcript of what you're reading.
Right. Exactly. So we've got study strategies, we've got personalized learning, we've got active engagement, we got note-taking.
Okay.
But studying isn't just about taking in information.
Right.
It's also about communicating it,
Yeah, absolutely.
whether that's participating in class discussions or presenting a project.
Even just talking to a friend?
Yeah, explaining it to a study buddy, communication is key.
It is.
And this source talks about that.
It does.
And it all starts with listening.
True listening.
Oh, I'll admit, sometimes my mind wanders.
I think we've all been there.
Like you're nodding along, but really you're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner.
Exactly.
Not exactly active listening.
Not quite.
So how do we become better listeners?
This source talks about all the common barriers to listening.
Yeah.
Distractions, biases,
Oh, yeah.
even daydreaming.
Even our own daydreaming. Yeah.
Like our brains are kind of wired to filter out information.
Yeah, it's true.
Even when we're trying to pay attention.
So how do we fight those instincts?
It takes awareness and practice.
Okay.
Consciously focus on the speaker,
Mm-hmm.
make eye contact, minimize distractions,
Okay.
ask clarifying questions.
That's a good tip.
Not only does it show that you're engaged,
Yeah.
it also forces you to process the information.
To think more deeply about it.
Yeah,
It turns listening from this passive activity into a dialogue.
exactly.
I love that.
And that leads perfectly into the next thing this source talks about, public speaking,
Okay.
which is a skill a lot of people are afraid of,
I'm one of them.
but it is essential for communication.
Okay. Any tips for overcoming those public speaking jitters?
Preparation is key.
Okay.
You've got to know your material inside and out.
Yeah.
But the source also says it's important to structure your presentation.
Okay.
Make it logical, make it engaging.
So it's like storytelling.
Yes. Think of it like a story.
Capture their attention, take them on a journey.
That's it.
Instead of just reading off slides, you're weaving a narrative.
Yeah.
You're thinking about how to incorporate visuals and make it interactive.
Make it interesting.
Yeah.
Keep them engaged.
And practice, right?
Practice makes perfect.
That's what they say.
Rehearse it multiple times.
Okay.
Not just to memorize it, but also for delivery.
Yeah, your pace, your body language.
Get comfortable.
Even if public speaking isn't your thing,
Uh-huh.
these tips can apply to any form of communication.
Right, like a job interview or a meeting.
Or a conversation.
Yeah, even just conversation.
It's about getting your ideas across clearly.
Leaving an impression.
Yeah.
The source emphasizes that communication skills are like any skill.
You have to practice.
You have to practice and refine them.
Okay.
So we've got study strategies, we've got communication skills.
What's next?
Well, now it's time to level up
I like that. Level up.
and delve into research.
I am ready.
Get ready, it's going to get really interesting.
We'll be back in a jiffy to explore the next stage of this deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive. We've covered study strategies, communication skills, and now we're going to tackle research.
Research, it's a big one.
It is.
And dissertations.
Yes, dissertations.
I always imagine them as like climbing Mount Everest.
I know, it can feel very daunting.
It's like this big scary thing.
Right.
But the source actually makes it feel kind of exciting.
Yeah, it breaks it down step by step.
Approachable.
It gives you a roadmap.
I like that.
And it starts with what's often considered the heart of a dissertation,
Okay.
the literature review.
The literature review. Okay, so before we do our own research, we've got to see what everyone else has done.
Exactly. You have to understand the existing knowledge.
But isn't that just summarizing a bunch of other people's work?
It's more than just summarizing.
Okay.
It's about analyzing,
Okay.
identifying trends, gaps in knowledge, areas where researchers disagree.
So you're like a detective.
Yes, you're piecing together a story
Okay.
about what's already known about your topic.
I like that.
You're building a case for why your research is important.
Showing why your question hasn't been fully answered.
Exactly.
But with so much information out there, where do we even begin?
The source recommends starting with primary sources.
Primary sources? What are those?
Things like original research articles, reports, the raw data.
Okay, straight from the source.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it also mentions the value of secondary sources.
What are those?
Those are more like summaries or interpretations of existing research.
So it's kind of like primary sources are like the ingredients,
Okay.
and secondary sources are like the pre-made sauce.
I like that. That's a good analogy.
It can save you time, but you still want to maybe adjust it.
Right, find the right balance.
Add your own flavor.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've gathered all this research. How do we write the literature review?
This source breaks it down into a clear structure,
Okay.
like a recipe.
I like recipes.
You start with an introduction,
Okay.
sets the stage, explains the topic, why it's relevant.
Okay, so you're giving the reader a roadmap.
Exactly. You're guiding them through the landscape.
I like that.
And then comes the body of the literature review,
Oh.
where you present and analyze the findings.
From all those different studies.
Yes, and the source suggests organizing them either thematically or chronologically.
Okay, so thematically would be by concept.
Yes, grouping studies that share common themes.
And chronologically would be by time.
Exactly, tracing how research has evolved.
So, like, how do I want to display my collection? Do I want to group by type or by time?
That's a great way to think about it.
It depends on the story I want to tell.
Exactly.
And it's not just summarizing.
Right, you need to critically evaluate each source.
Okay.
What are its strengths and weaknesses? How does it relate to your research question?
So I'm like engaging with it.
Yes, you're not just passively reporting.
Questioning things.
Exactly.
Highlighting what my research is going to address.
And then you have the conclusion of the literature review.
Okay.
Tie a bow on the package.
Summarize everything.
Summarize the key takeaways.
Highlight the gaps.
Highlight the gaps that your research will fill.
And show why it's significant.
Exactly.
That aha moment for the reader.
That's it.
Okay, the literature review sets the stage.
But now you need to explain how you're going to do the research.
Methodology.
The methodology section.
Okay, so that's where we explain the research design.
Your tools, your methods, the logic behind your choices.
Transparency is key.
Very important. You're letting the reader see behind the scenes.
Like a recipe so they could replicate it.
Exactly, like a recipe.
Okay, I like that.
And the source emphasizes that your methodology should align with your research questions.
It should make sense.
It should. If you're studying the impact of a new teaching method,
Yeah.
your methods will be different than if you're analyzing historical documents.
Right, the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got our data. Now we're going to show our findings.
The results section.
Okay, so tables, charts, graphs.
Describe what you found.
Okay, let the data speak for itself.
Let it
Okay, so we're opening the treasure chest.
revealing the gems.
But we don't just stop there, right?
No, you need to explain what it all means.
The discussions.
The discussion section.
Okay, so this is where we interpret the findings.
Connect them back to your research questions,
To the literature review.
to the broader theoretical framework.
So we're explaining the why and the so what.
Exactly.
What does it all mean?
What are the implications?
And then the conclusion.
the grand finale.
This is where we bring it all together.
Summarize your findings, restate your arguments, highlight your contributions.
Like the closing statement.
Yes, like a closing statement.
Drive it all home.
And then you have the appendices.
Appendices. Okay.
Think of them like bonus features,
Extra details.
raw data for those who want to go deeper.
Like a backstage pass.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay. And, of course, we can't forget the bibliography.
The references, very important.
Give credit where credit is due. It's like a thank you note to all the researchers who came before you.
Exactly.
So a dissertation isn't just a hoop to jump through.
It's a contribution
It's a way to add to your field.
to make a difference.
And it uses all those skills that we've been talking about.
It does. It brings it all together.
Okay, so before we move on to the last part of this deep dive,
Okay.
where we explore those everyday habits,
Yes.
let's take a quick breather
A good strategy.
to recap.
Always a good idea.
All right, we've climbed that mountain, we've done the research. Now let's talk about those everyday habits.
Yeah, the little things that can really make a difference.
That can make a difference, and this source, it really goes into detail about this stuff.
It does.
And it all starts with knowing yourself.
Understanding your own learning style.
Okay, I've heard of learning styles, but I'm not sure I really understand how to apply that practically.
Okay, well, think about it this way.
Okay.
Let's say you're trying to learn the parts of a cell.
Okay.
If you're a visual learner, just reading about them might not be enough.
Okay.
But what if you drew a diagram
Uh-huh.
or watched an animation
Okay.
that brings it to life? Then it clicks.
So it's about putting the information into a format that my brain likes.
Exactly, that your brain can grasp.
But for auditory learners, that might be recording lectures,
Listening back to them.
listening back or discussing it.
Having conversations.
Yeah, and kinesthetic learners, those are the ones that gotta move,
Move
build a
on.
model, act it out.
Use your whole body.
Yeah, make it an active experience.
The source talks about active learning,
Yeah,
which is really about engaging with the material.
not just reading and highlighting.
Right, you're processing it,
Yeah.
making connections,
Okay.
challenging it.
So like summarizing it in my own words.
Yes, or teaching it to someone else.
Oh, the teaching thing, that's a good one.
It really works.
Because you have to understand it to teach it.
You have to. And the source also talks about using taste and smell to boost memory.
I remember this. This was a weird one.
Sounds strange.
But it's about using your senses.
Engaging multiple senses
Yeah.
creates stronger connections.
So maybe study with a scented candle.
Or chew a specific gum.
Associate flavors with topics.
It can act as a memory trigger.
Okay, what about procrastination?
Procrastination.
It's a big one. Any tips on how to beat it?
Well, the source says we need to understand why we procrastinate.
Okay.
It's often not laziness.
It's fear.
It's fear. Fear of failure, fear of the task being too difficult.
Yeah, I can see that.
So break it down.
Smaller chunks.
Smaller chunks make it less intimidating.
So instead of looking at a giant research pacer,
Right.
I break it down into steps
Research, outline, draft, edit.
and then reward myself.
Yes, the reward system.
Little dopamine hit.
It works.
Okay, but even with the best strategies, sometimes distractions win,
Distractions are everywhere.
especially our phones.
Oh, yes.
So what do we do?
Environment matters.
Okay.
Create a distraction-free zone.
Turn off the notifications.
Put your phone on airplane mode
Yeah. Maybe use a website blocker.
if you need to.
You know, sometimes I'll tell my family, hey, I'm studying for an hour, don't talk to me.
Setting boundaries is important.
It really is.
And routine. The source talks about routine.
Okay.
Set specific study times.
Like an appointment in my calendar.
Like an appointment, your brain will start to expect it.
It'll become a habit.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Learning styles, procrastination, distractions, even taste and smell.
It's been quite a journey.
It has, but I feel like I have so many tools now to be a better learner.
That's the goal.
And this is just the beginning.
Yes, the real learning happens when you take these ideas and make them your own.
Experiment.
Try different things, see what works for you.
Learning is a lifelong journey.
It is
And this deep dive has given us a roadmap.
a guide.
So keep exploring, keep being curious.
Never stop learning.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into study and research skills.
We hope you enjoyed it.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.
Until then, happy learning,